Quickly, does everybody have a handout? If not, Susanna can help you. Cool. Hi, so hi everyone, my name is Diana Villanueva. I'm a product manager with Pivotal Labs.
And my name is Krista Grassi, and I am a product designer at the lab. So currently leading the design practice there. Can you guys hear us okay? Yeah? Okay.
Cool. Just some little background on how this talk came about. So during product office hours, which is like an hour of free consulting that we do with startups, we have come across with a couple of startups that usually their questions are around data, which makes a lot of sense because we're in a data-driven world. And a lot of the questions revolve around like, okay, what kind of data do I need? What's the best platform for my data? How much data I need to collect? And very quickly, we found out that when we took a step back, very quickly we found out that when we take a step back and we try to figure out, okay, why are you trying to collect this data? What are you trying to learn? Are you ready to pivot away from your idea into a new direction? They're not very ready to answer that kind of question. And so a lot of the time, some of the activities that we do with them is to actually try them to get to understand how to ask better questions and how to move forward with those with your product. So today we wanted to give you guys a better way to think about it, and that's what's hypothesis-driven product management. And so you're a startup, there's a lot of uncertainty in your world, there's a lot of leaps of faith that you're going to take, and if you are familiar with the lean startup, this comes from there. And basically the idea is that you're going to take your riskiest assumptions, you're going to create a test to validate them, and you're going to observe the outcome, and use that data to either refine your new test or to actually drive the direction of the product.
So there's a bunch of different points in the development of a product where you want to use this hypothesis-driven product management, especially in the beginning when there's a lot of uncertainty. So, for example, you can't always just look at the way that other products are creating their ideas. You have to figure out what's unique to your own. So looking at analogies, for example, when Apple was creating the iPod, they had the analogy of Walkman, which told them that people would be willing to carry music around with them. But they also had the anti-analogy of Napster, which made them question whether or not people would be willing to pay for it. So they had to dig a little deeper. Another time is when you don't quite understand who your user is. So you always want to make sure that you're looking at your product through the lens of your user and not yourself. You can't just assume that the way that you use your product is the same way that other people will. And another really great time is when you need to showcase validation to your stakeholders and investors. So it's a lot easier to make a case for building something or not building something when you have quantifiable data to back it up. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a little bit of an exercise together. So we're going to give you a scenario. So Deanna and I have a friend, and her name is Jane. And Jane is a college athlete. She really struggles with trying to balance all of the demands of her busy work schedule with her, if she's a track and field athlete, for example. She has a really hard time trying to balance the demands of her coach and her teammates with all of her schoolwork. So she's always really burnt out, and she needs a way to balance this. So Deanna and I think we have a way to solve this for her. And our idea is that we think we could create a product, and this product would be called Daily 5, and it would be a smartphone app intended to help Jane achieve mental focus with 5-minute daily exercises delivered by guided audio. So you can kind of think along the lines of like Headspace or Happify or something like that, except catered more towards athletes. So Deanna and I think this is a really great idea. However, we're making a lot of assumptions. So we want to make sure that we are figuring out what these assumptions are. So what we're going to do together is you all should have a little stack of Post-its on your sheet. And we are going to do a quick brainstorm of any sorts of assumptions that Deanna and I are making that, if proved to be false, would cause this product idea to fail. So we're going to time box this to 2 minutes. And you can feel free to work with the person beside you. Do you have a question?
Oh,
okay. Yeah, so feel free to work with the person beside you, and don't worry too much about doing this right or wrong. Just treat it as a brainstorming exercise, kind of like a brain dump. All right.
I'm just good.
that if we were wrong about them, it would cause this idea not to be a good idea. Yeah. So maybe
Can you reiterate it one more time?
Yeah. So we have this product idea. So think about assumptions that we're making that could actually kill this idea. So I'll give you an example. Based on our idea, we might assume that we want to use smartphones. So we're right away assuming that all college athletes will have a smartphone for this to be successful, right? So that might be one assumption that you have. And then just try brainstorming. If you get one down, that's perfect.
I know it's a little hard when it's like somebody else's idea, but just try and.
Cool.
We're going to go through it together. So there's 1 minute left. Oh, and something I didn't mention, I'm trying to do them on different Post-it notes. You've already gone too far, sorry. All right, 15 seconds left. All right, so that's time. So now if you want to take a look at all of your different assumptions and try to decide which one you feel is the riskiest. So riskiest being there's a lot of unknowns about it, and if it was proven to be false or true, depending on how you wrote it, it would cause this product idea to fail. So we'll give you guys 30 seconds to do that. And once you have that one, just put it aside, and that's going to be your hypothesis for the first section on the worksheet. The one you think is the riskiest. All right, so hopefully you have one selected.
So regardless of the client that we work, whether it's a startup or an enterprise, it's sometimes very difficult for them to assess what's a priority in order to start working on. So we use, I'm going to introduce another tool that we actually use, which is called a 2x2, which is a simple but very powerful tool that we use with them. And the idea with the 2x2 is help you organize your ideas, in this case your assumptions, and help you understand where you would actually place them. The 2x2 that we're going to use is the y-axis represent how likely something is to kill the product. So the more likely, you put it higher up. And then on the x-axis, you have the knowns. So if you have more unknowns, meaning you don't have a lot of empirical evidence about the assumption that you have, you would put it towards the right. So can somebody share one of the assumptions that they wrote? Does anybody feel comfortable? Cool.
Maybe mental focus is not the problem.
Okay, so we are assuming that mental focus is a problem. Cool. Just by a show of hands, how many people think that this will be above the x-axis, meaning that it's very likely to kill the product if it turns out to be false? Alright, how many people think it should be below? Alright, so based on kind of the show of hands, like we would put it above. So now, again, by a show of hands, how many people think that we have a lot of empirical evidence that makes us think that we understand this assumption very well? Do we think we have a lot of empirical evidence or a lot of evidence? Okay, show your hand if you think that we have a lot of unknowns. All right, so in this case, we would actually place it on the upper right quadrant. So Christy and I actually did the same thing, and we sat down together, and we're like, okay, we have this idea. What are some of the assumptions that we're starting to make? And we used the same 2x2 to actually place all of the assumptions that we had. And it's very easy with the 2x2 to start actually seeing what your quadrants is. So for example, the way we wrote it, the upper right quadrant is the obvious yes. So this is the area of your riskiest area. This is where you don't know a lot of the information, and this is where you're making the riskiest assumptions that could actually kill your product. So very easy, it's really easy to see where you would start focusing, and especially if you're a startup, you don't have a lot of manpower, this is where you want to start concentrating your energy in. And just I'll read out loud some of the assumptions that we made. So we are assuming that college athletes struggle to find time to focus on schoolwork. We are assuming that college athletes are interested in meditation. We are assuming that college athletes would find it worth it to spend 5 minutes a day to achieve mental focus. So some similar assumptions that you might have come up with. So we have this assumption. This is what we believe to be our riskiest one based on the assessment that Christy and I did together. Feel free to use this assumption for the rest of the activities or use your own.
Cool. So now we're ready to write our lean experiment. So based off the riskiest assumption that you have, or using ours, what we're going to do is follow this format here. So in this case, we've got our hypothesis. So our hypothesis is that college athletes will find it worth it to spend 5 minutes a day to achieve mental focus. So now we want to think about a test that we could come up with that would answer this question for us. So you always want to make sure your tests are testing like real human behavior and in small bite-sized pieces. So for example, when Netflix was a new company, if you guys can remember, they used to send DVDs out in the mail, these like little cardboard, just like tiny flimsy envelopes. So their very first test was, are these actually going to survive in the mail? So what they did was they sent a bunch of DVDs out, had them sent back, and they tested which ones were damaged. And that was their first experiment. So we're going to time box this exercise again. We'll give you guys 3 minutes. So try to think of a test that you could come up with and make sure that you have evidence that you're looking for so that you can measure whether or not it's true. And you can work with the people beside you if you want as well. All right, so we're at the halfway mark. All right, we have about 30 seconds left.
Out of curiosity, how many of you actually came up with a test that involves building software? Everybody came up with a test that doesn't involve building software?
We're running a little bit over, but we're going to get everyone out of there. Cool.
Somebody's microphone is on. Okay, so building software is not a terrible thing, but it seems like everybody came up with a test that doesn't involve building software. So Christy and I, again, did the same activity. Christy and I did the same activity and want to share it with you. So basically, the way we're going to test this is we're going to recruit 5 college athletes. We're going to send iMessages and just send them a voice note to actually and ask them to record, to send back a message when they have completed the activity. And then at the end of the 1-week trial, we're just going to interview them and understand more about what the experience was. What this is going to involve is just 1 week, but there's no software that we're going to build, so there's no cost to it. The other very important part about the hypothesis is that our hypothesis has a failure rate. So if we see 75 completion rate, then we're going to know that it passed. If it's anything below that, we are holding ourselves accountable to say that, okay, it has failed. We're going to see 75% completion rates.
So here is an example of what Deanna and I created. So as you can see, there's no actual software involved here. All we did is every day we are sending our user a pre-recorded voice memo, and then we're having him report back to us whether or not he completed the exercise. And if he didn't complete it, he's letting us know why. So this is known as a concierge MVP, and what that means is we are manually performing a task that we eventually intend to have the software do for us. So some other examples of experiments that you could do would be exploratory interviews. So you could actually find a subset of your users, interview them with very open-ended questions to learn a little bit more about their behaviors. Other things you could do is a Wizard of Oz test. So Zappos used to do this. When they were first getting started, they would post all the shoes that they had on their website, and then they would actually have somebody just go to the store, buy the shoes, and send them. So they were pretending that they had a product that didn't actually exist yet. There's also solutions testing, so that means you could just create wireframes or prototypes and test them with people and see how they respond.
All right, so week has passed, and we kind of want to show you what to do with the data next. So we saw that 4 out of 5 participants completed each one of the activities. The one participant that actually missed 2 sessions, when we interviewed him, he reported that he was so busy that he actually forgot to complete it. So based on that, what our insights are is, based on that, our insights are, it passed, the hypothesis passed, because we observed a 92% completion rate, whereas we were expecting a 75% completion rate. And given that we actually got a lot of feedback about how they had forgotten because they were really busy, or how they were actually completing the activity anything between an hour to 15 hours after they were prompted, we want to start actually using the data from this experiment to now go into engagement and start exploring what our assumptions are around engagement and see what we need to do. And so the idea with the test is that you're going to grab the insights from the first test or the multiple first tests that you're running simultaneously, and you're actually going to apply that to your next set of tests or to the direction of your product. One very famous case scenario at Netflix, again, they actually run about 1,000 tests every week.
So hopefully we've provided you with some really simple tools that are also very powerful that you can use going forward in building your products. We also wanted to put up some additional resources here that have very much influenced the way that Pivotal Labs conducts a lot of these things. So the Lean Startup by Eric Ries, Just Enough Research by Erica Hall. She also does a talk that's 1 hour that's really good, and Sprint by Jake Knapp.
And if this is, again, tools that you feel that would be helpful for you to start actually moving forward with your product, feel free to talk to us about product office hours and how we can help you.
Yeah, we have a booth downstairs.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Give our guests a big round of applause.